Watch the ride.
Hey everybody, hope you're all doing alright out there. So a while ago now, I did a video where I asked ChatGPT how to fix bikes. Like, oh, there's this thing wrong with my motorcycle, how do I fix it? And it wasn't too bad at giving some answers. There were some mistakes there. Well, someone recently suggested, when I asked you for some things you might want to see, someone said, why don't you revisit that idea now that it's been a year or two, I think it's maybe 2 years, to see how good it is. Well, I was already thinking about doing that, but doing it with Grok instead of ChatGPT, because I think Grok is a lot better. So in this video, the suggestion and the idea have combined, and now we have Let's Ask Grok how to fix a motorcycle. I have a set of questions here that I wish to ask it, and I know that the answers it's going to give are going to be dramatically detailed. Apologies, get my phone away from me just so it doesn't go did it through the cables. It's happened before. So let's start with the first one I want to ask it, which is I have to look over everything here to type. My motorcycle will not start, it just makes a buzzing sound. In our mind's eye, what this problem is that the battery's drained and thus it doesn't have enough power to make the solenoid close fully. So it's going to just go click, click, that's what is a classic sign. So a buzzing sound when trying to start your motorcycle usually points to an electrical issue, often related to the battery, starter system, or connections. Okay, yeah. I mean, that is kind of going, it's probably this, or anything on the bike, but yeah, we're all right. Battery issue, low charge or dead battery. The buzzing is likely the starter relay clicking or struggling due to insufficient power. Check the battery voltage with a multimeter. It should read 12.6 volts. Should have normally be slightly more than that. When off. Oh, okay, and 14 volts when the bike is running. Yeah, that's about right, because you have your base level of your battery, and then you have your running level, which is obviously when the alternator is going and it's charging the dynamo, whatever you want to call it. It's the same thing. Magneto in a bike. It's got an above head voltage so it can charge the battery as well as run the bike. If it's below 12 volts, charge the battery and replace it. It hasn't mentioned there anything about amperage, because you have to do under load testing. You could be getting 13 volts in a battery, and then you got to start the bike under load and it drops to like 4 or something. It hasn't got the power there. So it's done well to pick out the issue that we had in mind first, but it hasn't mentioned that underload thing. But to be fair, you're going to replace the battery anyway, so good marks on this one. Loose or corroded connections, inspect the battery terminals. Yep, that's perfectly possible to be a problem. Starter relay solenoid, the buzzing could be the starter relay engaging but not delivering enough power for the starter motor. Okay, so now this is going on about, if it's not that, it could be this, it could be this, it could be this. If the relay is fine, but the motor doesn't turn, the starter itself could be faulty. Tap it lightly with a wrench, don't whack it hard, to see if it frees up. If not, it may need to replace. Okay, so if it's buzzing, it's going to be this starter solenoid, as I say, but to say about the starter motor, to find out if that's the issue, give it a little rap with a wrench, that's good stuff too. Now, we do have to remember, of course, this is taking its information from people, real people. There might even be stuff from me. I doubt it, but it goes all over the internet. It listens to videos, it reads stuff, and it puts it all together to give you an idea, which is why I'm not surprised that this isn't too bad. There is a point I should have made near the beginning of the video, which is this. Even if this comes out great, you can't trust an AI to give you information as to how to fix your motorcycle, because it gets things wrong and confidently wrong, and it gets confused. And the difference between reading this and, say, watching a YouTube video of someone doing the job is huge. If they say an image speaks 1,000 words, well, 60 images a second speaks a lot. And seeing things with your own eyes and having someone work through it and talk about it and talking about all the nuances to it is very valuable, and I don't think this is going to replace that in a text form. So on our first question, that's actually not bad at all. And there isn't any safety issues with this, really, so I'm not too concerned about any of the answers that's given there. So let's go to our next question. So the next question, in this scenario, we're imagining we've left the petcock off. So we're going to say, my motorcycle will not start, it turns over, but it will not run. So, how long before it says, have you checked your petcock? Fuel issues. Check fuel supply. Ensure the tank has fresh fuel. Stale gas can cause issues after 30 plus days. Okay, I've seen fuel left in bikes longer than that, but fair enough. Fuel delivery. Inspect the fuel line filter for clogs. If it's carburetted bike, the carburetor may be gummed up. Clean it. Okay, spark issue, ignition. Have we not mentioned a petcock here? Air supply. Head gasket, kill switch. I mean, it did say fuel delivery to start with, to be fair. But it didn't say about checking for a petcock. What about the fuel tap? Fuel tap or petcock could be a key reason. Why did you not say then? My apologies, my oversight. I didn't mention the fuel initially because I aimed to cover the most common causes. Fuel spark. Yeah, but that's part of fuel. I could get into an argument here with it. Let's not do that. So on that one, it's kind of failed a little bit because it's not thought to say, is it a fuel tap? But at the same time, how many bikes now have got fuel taps on them because, you know, they're EFI, not carbed? Okay, let's see the next one. How do I tighten my chain? I want it to mention here that you need to be careful and know what you're doing because there is ways of getting hurt doing this. So, right, so how do I tighten my motorcycle chain? To tighten your motorcycle chain, follow these steps. Gather tools. You'll need a wrench, usually 10 to 14 mil. For adjustable bolts, a socket wrench. Yep, that looks okay. Put the bike on a stand. Use a paddock stand or centre stand to lift the rear wheel off the ground for easier access. If you don't have one, ensure the bike is stable and on flat ground. Right, but you should do chain adjustments with the weight of the bike on the back wheel. Unless it's a bike that has a centre stand and the manual suggests doing it that way. Loosen the rear axle nut. Don't fully undo it because you just need to move the wheel. That's good. Locate chain adjustments. Find the chain adjuster bolts on either side of the swing arm near the rear axle. These are usually bolts with lock nuts. Well, then you more see them as just lock nuts, but okay. Check chain slack. Push the chain up and down at its midpoint between the front and rear sprocket. Most bikes require 20 to 40 millimeters of slack. Check your manual. Too tight or too loose affects performance and wear. Okay, so that's okay. Adjust chain tension. Turn the adjuster bolts clockwise to tighten and counterclockwise to loosen. Adjust both sides evenly to keep the wheel aligned. Use the alignment marks on the swing arm as a guide to ensure the wheel stays straight. No. I mean, you can use them in the sense of like, okay, I'm on number 4 as a coarse gauge of where it is, and then use measurement to take it to the fully aligned point. But I would never use those marks as a trustworthy way of aligning your rear wheel, unless your bike happens to be one that's got really accurate marks, because I've seen bikes in the past where the wheel is straight, but they don't agree on the marks. Like if you made it 3 and 3, both sides, the wheel was out of alignment. It was that out. Tighten the axle nut. Once the chain tension is correct, tighten the rear axle nut to the torque specified in your manual. Typically 60 or 100 newton meters. Yeah, okay, but check. Good, I'm liking that. It's normally this, but check. Lubricate the chain. Test ride. Take a short ride to ensure the chain's free, smooth, and the bike handles properly. Recheck tension after the ride, and the chain is settled. That's actually not bad. It hasn't been specific about the lock nuts, as in there's 2 nuts that lock it down, but then that is not universal between all bikes. What's the tips here? Always refer to your motorcycle manual for exact specs, slack, torque settings. Ensure adjustments are even on both sides to avoid misalignment. Yes, but you haven't mentioned that those marks aren't good enough and there are other ways of getting that more accurate. But that's possibly me being a little bit pedantic. I like to make sure it's more accurate than that. If the chain is too worn or stretched, consider replacing it instead of just tightening. That's a fair point. Clean the chain before lubing it if it's dirty. Well, that's common sense. So that's okay. It hasn't, yeah, it hasn't been too concerned about safety issues with this, and the information is, as a ballpark, is okay. But this is the problem. This is kind of my point. If you're asking Grok how to tighten your chain, should you be tightening your chain? Should you not be watching videos of other people doing it so you've seen it done before you go and do it? Then maybe this might help you, remind you of the list and the way to do it, like step by step. But I think you probably should just watch someone doing it in a video, or obviously have a friend show you, or a family member, or whatever. That's always the best. Hands-on experience is the best. At least seeing it is second best. Text version, at least for me as a dyslexic, I mean, I understand what it's saying, and as someone who knows about bikes, I can see problems in this, but it just doesn't give you the same amount of info. Okay, we're going to up the ante for this one, and I'm going to ask it, how do I change my brake pads? How do I change my motorcycle brake pads? Changing motorcycle pads is a straightforward process if you have the right tools and follow proper steps. Here's a concise guide based on general best practices for most motorcycles. Specific steps may vary depending on the bike, make and model. Good little bit of a warning to start with. I wish there was a bit more than that, because if you get the brakes wrong, you know. Tools, materials, new brake pads, Allen key and hex wrenches, socket set, screwdriver, C-clamp or piston compression tool. C-clamp? Is there people out there using C-clamps as piston compression tools? I mean, I guess you could, but... brake cleaner spray, torque wrench, gloves. Okay, so... Optional service manual for your motorcycle. If you're asking Grok, it should be like, look, if you're asking me, you need a service manual. Steps to change motorcycle brake pads. Preparation. Park the motorcycle on flat surface, ideally on a center stand or paddock stand for stability. Ensure the bike is cool to avoid burns or brake fluid issues. Brake fluid issues? If your brake fluid's so hot that you need to let it cool down, you've got more than that. Gather all the tools and confirm the new brake pads match your bike's specification. Okay, fine. Access the brake caliper. Locate the brake caliper, usually near the disc rotor on the wheel. Opposed to what? In your pocket? Remove any covers or retaining clips if present. Loosen the clip mounting bolts, usually 22 bolts, using Allen wrench. Don't fully remove them yet. Slide the calipers off the disc rotor. You may need to wiggle gently. Remove the retaining pins, clips and springs holding the brake pads in place. Note their orientation for assembly. Pull the old brake pads out of the caliper. Inspect the pads for uneven wear, which could indicate caliper or rotor issues. Okay, that's okay. I would have liked it to mention hanging the calipers from the bike opposed to letting them dangle from the brake lines, but, you know. Compress the brake piston. The brake caliper piston must be pushed back to make room for the thicker new pads. Yes, that's true. Basically, obviously, the pistons come out and live further and further out as the pads get thinner. And that's why you have an amount of brake fluid in your reservoir to make up for that extra amount they have to live out while leaving enough for the actual brakes to still work. However, if you push those back in and they're dirty or damaged, corroded, they're going to destroy your seals. So all I can see from this is someone going, oh, look, take the pads out, get a C-clamp, wind it in, and it'll wind it in all right. You may at that point, well, you will definitely destroy your seals, and you may never get that piston back out because you could cram it into the aluminium of the housing. This is where the knowledge thing that the person asking this question won't have. Use a C-clamp or compression tool to gently push the pistons back into the caliper. Do this slowly to avoid damaging the piston or seals. You haven't mentioned cleaning them. If the brake fluid reservoir is full, remove the reservoir cap and place a rag around it to catch any overflow. Avoid spilling brake fluid as it's corrosive. Yeah, that's okay. That's a good point, because if you're trying to push them back in with the cap on the system, you're trying to push fluid. You're trying to compress fluid into the reservoir, basically. So it's going to be very difficult to get them to go back in. So, yeah. Or you can just undo a bleed nipple on the caliper and then do it. Install new brake pads. Apply a thin layer of brake grease, if recommended, to the back of the new pads to reduce noise. Brake grease. It's talking about putting copper grease on the back of your pads. No, don't do that. On cars, it was a thing they did, and I think now they use anti-vibration plates, and they don't tend to do it. Maybe some people still do, but as my understanding goes, on a car you have more space for the distance between the grease and your discs and pads. On a bike, it's like this thin, and it's like this big overall, and if you put any grease on the back of that, some of it eventually is going to get round. It can contaminate your pads, it can stop you being able to brake. If someone slathers too much on there, then it comes out as a big globule, and that goes on the brake, and then there's so many things about that that's not right. So no, don't do that. Insert the new brake pads into the caliper, ensuring they sit correctly in their slots. Reinstall any retaining pins, clips, or other springs in the same orientation as before. Yeah, see, this is like going, how do you fix a car? Well, you take it apart, fix it, and put it back together. Great. That's not really helping anyone much. But as an overview of what's involved, okay. Reassemble a caliper, slide the caliper back over the disc rotor, tighten the caliper mount. Okay. I'm not going to read through every single step for this because, warning, tips and warnings, consult your manual. Motorcycle design may vary, so check your bike's service manual for specific torque settings or quirks. Fair. Safety first. If you're unsure or encounter issues, i.e. stuck piston, warped rotor, consult a professional mechanic. I would rather a verbal warning of like, be in mind these are your brakes, and if they go wrong, you could get badly hurt. Replace pads when they're worn to 1 to 2 millimeters. I think it's perfect. Not too bad, but I am concerned about a few glazed over things there, pun intended. So you see, this is the problem. It is actually giving good answers, and if you know what the job is, you're like, well, that's right. Yeah, you do that, then you do that, and then you do that. That's right. But because you're in your knowledge, you have got this, and you're going tick, 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 tick down the list. You have to remember that this is all the knowledge that anyone's going to have who's gone to Grok for information to do this, and they're not going to have all the bits in between. They're not going to have all the nuance. And I think a lot of that is very important. In fact, slight tangent here, but this is an important point. If you have YouTube Premium, you have a jump ahead button, right? So say, for instance, someone's about to do their 1.5 2 minute ad spot for whatever person's sponsoring their video. It will say jump ahead, and you can click that and it will just jump to the next spike where people skip to. Now, it doesn't just do this for ads. It does it when people get through the waffling part at the beginning, or when they talk about what they're about to do. Before they do the thing, they might say something before. You skip past that. What if that person spent 20 seconds covering a caveat, which is like, if your bike has this or this or this, make sure you don't do it the way you're about to see me do it. But they don't see that because they get click jump ahead, and then they get to that point, and then there they are. I mean, I guess, yeah, okay, people might just skip it themselves, but to physically have a button there to like, I don't care about the nuanced information here. I don't need to know that stuff. I just want to, I just want to fix my brakes. Okay, slather some grease on them. You know what I mean? I like that it's correct, but then I think it's only as correct as people online who made the content for it to copy. And in this instance, it's not actually showing where it's getting this information from. I've got an idea. Let's see if it brings up legalities. I want to put a 180cc big ball kit in my 125 bike. How do I do it? It seems like a common sort of question. Installing a 180cc big bore kit on a 125 motorcycle is a complex task that requires mechanical expertise, specialist tools, and careful attention to detail. The process involves replacing the stock cylinder and piston with larger ones to increase the engine's displacement, which can boost power but may also affect reliability, fuel consumption, and legality. Go you for actually mentioning that. Insurance or registration issues. As a base, yes, if you say it's a 125, even if you've got a license for it and you put a 180 in it and then they find it has a 180 in it, that's invalid short insurance. And obviously if you have a CBT, you can't do that either. But then it goes into a step-by-step confirm, ensure that the kit's correct, gather the tools. Oh, okay, so this is going to be again, okay, let's try something really specific because, okay, I'm asking it now a very specific question. Now the reason I'm asking it this question is because there is 2 correct answers. It used to be something like 85 Newton meters, and Suzuki upped that to 105 Newton meters with red Loctite because they kept undoing themselves. The counter shaft nut, by the way, is the front sprocket nut, and what used to happen was that nut would come undone and pop off, the sprocket could pop off, and it allowed the seal behind, which was held in by the sprocket, to jump out a little bit, and then oil would pour out the side of the engine. Does it know this fact, or does it not? The torque setting for the countershaft sprocket nut on a DRZ 400SM is 105 foot-pounds. Oh, is it foot-pounds? I meant foot-pounds, not Newton meters, sorry. As per Suzuki's official revised torque specifications for all model years. It is worth noting that some other sources mention a lower torque spec, but it has been updated, possibly due to changes in the shaft design or materials. No, it was because it was just not high enough and it used to undo itself. Always use red Loctite on the splines to prevent loosening and ensure the lock washer is properly engaged. If you are working on an older model like 2000s DRZ, double check the shaft design, as some had larger holes and were prone to thread damage if over-torqued. I didn't even know that last bit. Where did you get that last bit from? A Reddit post. And this is one of the nice things about Grok when it does give you this. It's got this information from Reddit, okay, and it's got this information from ThumperTalk. Now, what it doesn't know is ThumperTalk is not a reliable source of information. Well, correction, there is some very reliable information on there. It's just mixed in with loads of really unreliable information and wrong information. And if you don't know the answer to the question you're going on there to ask, you're not going to know if the answer they're giving is right or not. And people will argue until the end over some of these points. What I'll say compared to the last video with GPT is I think this is far more well structured. It does give references, it does seem to know some nuance points, it does mention legality issues, it does bring up safety issues. I would like it to do more on that side. So I'm quite happy about it covering its butt, because that was my major concern with people using this. But I don't think they're going to pay heed to that. And people are going to use this for information. And it might, if they've got a rough idea, and they just want to be reminded, like maybe you watched a video of me tightening a chain and you hadn't watched it in 3 years, but then you ask this and then you look at it and you're like, oh yeah, no, that jogs a memory. Or maybe you've just got enough mechanical knowledge there to be like, oh, okay, so I do this, this and this. I'm not sure that's going to be enough, but it might be for some. But then again, this falls into this whole thing of, I obviously make videos to encourage you all to get onto two wheels, to learn to fix your own bikes. But at the same time, I'm going on about, if you don't know what you're doing with your brakes, you could get yourself really badly hurt or worse. And people are like, well, where do you stand on it? Am I supposed to get... Only the professional can do jobs like that, because I have people say stuff like that to me. Only the professional should touch stuff like that. And I've just not been brought up like that. I've been brought up since day one to fix it yourself. It was put together with a human hand. It can be fixed with a human hand. And the only thing that stops me from being able to do that is knowledge. And knowledge is free. And it's easier to get than ever. Which is why I've spent, the past 20 years just absorbing information like a sponge on everything you could possibly imagine. Because it's all worth knowing. So, I am both pleased with Grok. Well, no, actually, I'm actually very pleased with Grok. I think for something that didn't exist a few years ago, this level of information, basically of going and getting other people's information, but putting it together and giving some warnings to that, I think is very good. What I don't like is the fact that people think this is the way you learn now, rather than actually going and doing the hard work of maybe watching videos, going and spending time with a relative who does work on things and physically learning. You can't do an engine replacement using ChatGPT, but I have a feeling there are people in this world, maybe from some younger generations, who feel like that is not only possible, but viable and may even be the way. I mean, I heard a little while ago, someone was using TikTok as a search engine. How do you say... I want to say, no. Don't use AI to do this at all. It's a bad idea. If you're asking an AI for this question, you don't know enough to know what you don't know, and that is what is going to make you incredibly dangerous to yourself. But at the same time, if you don't ever start somewhere, you'll never get anywhere, which is why you start with the simple jobs. And that's why I asked in this order of starting with something that was relatively easy, and relatively low risk, to something far more risky to see what it says. What do you think? I personally think the answer is no, do not look at this. But if you want to look at it as a quick memory jogger, then yeah, it's okay. But don't ask it for specifications. Don't ask it for things like that, because let's see if I can get... Okay. I have a video on this. Let's see if it comes up. Do you have a link to a video on this? I couldn't find a specific video showing this. Okay. Okay, so DRZ 400 front sprocket replacement. This video from YouTube shows the process of replacing the front sprocket of a DRZ 400, including removing, reinstalling the countershaft sprocket nut. Well, okay, so let's watch that video. This video isn't available anymore. Okay, chain and sprocket maintenance, another YouTube video that covers a claim. Okay, so let's watch that one. I think we're about to prove a point here. It's about to call these placeholder links. I bet you. Apologies for confusion. Provided placeholders. So it says because, yeah, there you go. I didn't have access to specific video URLs for the search results available to me since I can't directly access it. So basically what it said here is I made all of this up saying there was this video and then giving you this. Oh, okay, maybe it took it from that. Okay, well, let's see if that's the title then. Okay, fine. I get what you're saying there. I don't know why. So, no, it hasn't come up with an answer for that. It suggested one of my own videos. And then it's going into some other random videos. Okay, so if I put DRZ 400E countershaft nut replacement, DRZ for countershaft sprocket loose even after Loctite, I doubt it. Here's my video about right, if I actually just put no, not that one. That is that was one hell of a nuts trying to do. Yeah, there we go. So if I specifically put my own name in afterwards, then I can get my video which talks about the countershaft nut. But it doesn't come up throughout the recommendeds. It just comes up with 16-year-old videos from phones. YouTube is... it doesn't like me. This is part of the problem. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking now. What do you think? Do you think it's impressive that it knows this much, even though it's just scraping it off the internet? Or do you think it's a concern that some people are going to actually try and use this and it misses very key important points in some places? Let me know. So yeah, like the video, subscribe if you're new here, and thanks to my YouTube members and my patrons who make this channel possible at all. I hugely appreciate you, and the people recently who sent a little donation through PayPal directly. You don't get any thanks on screen like those members do, but at least occasionally I'll be like, hey, I saw it. Thank you, it's helpful. Till the next one. Bye-bye.